I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0, and this is After the Poll. Guys, this is the video series where I do an in-depth review of 5 of my most highly anticipated comic books and see if they live up to the hype. I just want to mention real quick about Whatnot. Guys, if you have not joined Whatnot yet, now is the perfect opportunity to do it. Download the app, create an account, and if you buy something on Whatnot, you guys can save $15 off of your first purchase by using my super link. I will leave it in the description box below. Take advantage of it, save some money. You don't have to just buy comics. They sell all kinds of great things, and what's great about Whatnot is that you get hooked on watching these live auctions. So again, guys, use my super link, save 15 bucks. Coming in at number 5, we have Lovesick issue 1 by Image Comics. This book was a little bit dark for me, not usually my acquired taste, but it wasn't horrible to the point where I was like super cringy about it. So I might check out issue 2. Now I'm going to show you one page or so of the artwork. I can't go too much into it because there's a lot of nudity in this book, but it's about this woman by the name of Domino, as you get to see her right here on the page, and she is a dominatrix, and she has her girls, and her girls call her mother and stuff like that, and she does all these like dark web stuff, and there's certain people that are trolling her, and somehow she captures these people and she tortures them, and she does these live feeds, and people watch this stuff. It's kind of weird, right? But it's kind of interesting at the same time because you want to know where it goes and why did she start this whole thing. Hopefully they dive deeper into that. But this was a pretty good read. Again, I can't show you too much into it, but we'll see what happens with it. Yeah, there you have it. Lovesick, issue 1. She likes to call people piggies. Coming in at number 4, we have Exterminators, issue 2. Here's the thing with this comic book, guys. If you can just shut your brain off and not worry about continuity things and how mutants can go out drinking and how are they not really part of Krakoa right now, you're going to have fun with this book. Okay, and that's what I do with this. Sometimes it's good to just shut the brain off and just read a book that's got some good action, fun humor, and things like that. And what's cool about this book is it has all the, it has a few of the female mutants in here, like Dazzler, Boom Boom, Jubilee, and Laura here. And they're doing this battle against these vampires. They were thrown into this maze, this like arcade style of place where they're forced to survive. And the vampires are pretty much getting off on everything that these girls are doing. They're lusting for blood, and they like to see all this blood being spilled and stuff like that. It's kind of weird, but for me, I like it. I like the artwork. I think it's bright, it's vibrant. I like the character interactions between the girls and whatnot. So decent, it's just something different that we haven't seen, right? There is some Krakoa stuff that happens, which I felt was kind of, I don't know, it just kind of throws things off of the actual flow of the comic for a page or two. I didn't feel like it was necessary, but what happens in this book is Dazzler was dating a vampire, and she found out that he was cheating on her, and she broke his record collection. So to get revenge for the breakup, he winds up capturing the girls and puts them in this maze. It's like something that Arcade would create. And now our girls are stuck, faced in this situation to try to get out. Now in this issue, they were put in some kind of like glass maze and they had to escape. It's like a mirror maze, I should say that, like in a fun house. And when they see their vision of each other, they multiply out of these mirrors and they battle. The person that's behind this is Dracula's son, and he was the one that was responsible for making Jubilee a vampire in the first place. and Dazzler's ex-boyfriend is his son. So now you see everything kind of come together in this book and who's behind it. So Dracula's son, and then Dracula's grandson is all behind it all. So yeah, you get to see like this mirror maze come up, and when they see visions of themselves, then what happens is they got to fight themselves over and over again. Meanwhile, all the vampires are watching and cheering on, and there's some humor in there. And just when you think the girls escaped this like mirror place, there's another one that forms, and they got to do battle against vampires. So again, it's nothing groundbreaking. It's just one of those books where it just kind of reminds you maybe almost of simpler days of comics, where it's just action, fighting, battling, except it's a little bit more mature, right? And yeah, so that's what you get. So if you don't take it too seriously, I think, you know, you could have some fun with it, but I understand if you don't like it, and if you don't want to waste $4 on a comic book that doesn't really mean anything. Landing in that 3 spot as of right now, we have Punchline, the Gotham game, issue 1, written by Tini Howard. Now, this series, I feel, is very important for the longevity of the character. She was introduced by James Tynion in Batman, then she wound up going to jail, and she wound up having a backup story, and I felt like no one really cared about the backup story. Now that Punchline has her own book, once again, I feel like this story has to hit it out of the park for people to care about her. So what did this book have to offer? Well, the one thing is when I opened it up and I was at the comic shop deciding if I was going to buy this book or not, I looked at the artwork, and the artwork was actually really good. I love the characters' facial expressions. I love the way Punchline looked. Some of the other characters looked well. And I was like, okay, well, based off of the artwork alone, this definitely piqued my interest to see what this had to offer, okay? As we open up the book, we get to see this random kid that's live streaming a concert. You get to see his view count go up. You know, it was quite interesting. But in the beginning of this scene, it's very important that you pay attention to it because it comes back around at the end, right? So you see Punchline get out of jail, kind of catches you up what was going on with her, and she has to reestablish herself. Now, she winds up somehow coming across this kid and taking him hostage, the one that was the live streamer, okay? There's police presence, hid him away somewhere, and that was that when it comes to that kid for right now. Next things first is we see the king and the queen of the Royal Flush Gang. They're actually in retirement, so Punchline comes to their house asking them to come out of retirement to join her future crew. And it was kind of funny, these two hired her because they wanted to spice things up and have a threesome with her, which I thought was actually hilarious that was mentioned in this comic book. So they decided to join her. They're like, okay, we can spice things up, we can make some money and whatnot. And now the purpose of this whole thing, which I thought was a little weird, was so Punchline can create this drug and make money off of it and sell it to people all over the street. Now, it's not illegal. They can sell it through drugstores and all these other places and whatnot, but eventually Gotham is probably going to catch on to this drug and realize it's not a good thing, and it's sold by, obviously, Punchline. I don't know. I just felt that was kind of weird, and we see that Bruce Wayne is spying on her at the end of the day. So it didn't even get through a first issue to where we already have Batman involved in this book to help sell it. So I don't know. I mean, I liked the book. I thought it was interesting. It definitely is piquing my interest to a point where, all right, I'm going to pick up issue 2, but I don't know if this has enough longevity to keep me reading it. So we'll see what happens. I think this is a mini series. I don't know if it's an ongoing or not. Let me know in the comments below. But it was okay. I liked it. It just wasn't like groundbreaking. Moving on to number 2, we have Strange Academy Finals. This is issue 1, basically the second volume to Scotty Young and Humberto Ramos's series. This book is phenomenal. I love this. Now, I've said I'm not a magic fan in any way, shape, or form, but the way this book is written, it has you vested into these characters. What they did right in Volume 1 was introduce all of the characters. They had all of their own little story arcs, so it made you feel attached to characters. And as a reader of this series, you have your favorites, you have your not so favorites, and this is kind of also a coming of age story about these kids who go to this strange academy and experience this academy and magic and things like that for the first time. In the first volume, we wound up getting to see a relationship build with these two characters by the name of Doyle and Emily. And we get to see really the outcome of what happens with this boy in this issue by the name of Calvin. He gets expelled from the school in the first volume. Emily takes his side, and Doyle doesn't agree with it. He's jealous of her because they had a relationship, and they basically split up, and now half the academy is with Emily and half the academy stays. And it's creating this rift on what could be a future battle in the end of the world situation between these two because Doyle had that vision. When you open up this book, though, you don't really need to read the first volume. I think Scotty Young does a great job at capturing or recapturing everything that happened in the first volume. And as you want to read this for the first time, you're like, oh, wow, I feel caught up. And you're like, I can understand what's going on now. And then in this issue, you wind up getting to see the continuations of the divide of what's happening in this series. Now, Emily took all of the people that followed her into the dark dimension, and her goal is to prove Dr. Voodoo and all the other teachers at Strange Academy that they're wrong for expelling a kid, that he did something that wasn't really his fault, right? And while she's in this dark dimension, though, she's starting to become more dark, more evil. Then we wind up getting to see that boy Calvin that I talked about that was expelled. He's like a kid that was kicked out onto the streets, and now instead of him pushing drugs, it's like he's pushing magic spells, right? And this guy Gaslamp is the one that's in control of everything. But since he can't push these drugs or whatever it is the right way, he's in some serious trouble now. So how he's going to be rescued, I don't know. You get to see things that are happening in Strange Academy itself, and we can see Doyle, who was the ex-boyfriend of Emily, is having all these different thoughts and these, battles going on through his head and stuff like that. But the main thing you get out of this comic book is, again, her, Emily, the main character, which I feel is in this book. And she's having this argument with Zoe, who's from Midnight Suns, on what's right and what's wrong. And they're creating a rift between themselves. And it looks like they're going to start battling against each other. Again, she's starting to change into something much more dark. And they argue, and now there's going to be this divide because she makes this comment. She goes, any of you want to leave and go back to Strange Academy, this is your final chance. So basically, she's threatening everybody. So a book that started off very light in the beginning is starting to slowly become more and more darker. That was my issue with Volume 1 at first. I'm like, where's the direction of this book going? It was a very slow burn in the beginning, but towards the end of the first volume, you got to see the direction of this book. I really enjoy it. Love the characters in here. They have grown tremendously since issue 1. Can't wait to see what happens in this second volume. Definitely recommend this book. As of right now, number 1 goes to Vanish issue 2. Now, this book is really well written. I like the characters in this book. I love Ryan Stegman's artwork in here. However, I am surprised at what Donny Cates did in this issue. Now, just a warning, guys, this does have to deal with the events of 9/11. So if this creates some kind of triggers or PTSD or something that's going to affect you, don't look at the opening pages of this book. I am surprised that Donny Cates did go here, but he was trying to portray a message here that whenever there's an evil, there's always a second evil behind it. And in the beginning of this book, we wind up seeing all the little sorcerers here come to Earth watching the everyday man, right? And we get to see that the plane was about to hit one of the towers. They made one of the planes vanish. They all celebrated thinking that they did something great. And when they vanished and disappeared, they saw the other plane come and take down the other tower. So there was a message there that there's always going to be evil following something that just happened. So I understand what Donny Cates was going with that. I don't know if I agree with using 9/11 as an example, as that's a very touchy thing for a lot of people. But once you get past that, we get to see Oliver, who is our main character here, who is looking for advice from his best friend, named Deacon Dust, as he is a magician in this Earth realm. And this is the life that he has provided for himself ever since the whole thing that's happened back from their home world before it was destroyed or whatnot. So Oliver goes to his friend, the magician, and he sits there and says, I was in a battle with one of Vanish's disciples or his people or whatnot. And he's like, I'm thinking about taking him out and I need your help. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I don't need your help. I don't need anything like that. He's just like, you need to go home, man, and go back to your wife. I think her name is like Eleanor or something like that. She was one of the sorcerers there. It's his longtime girlfriend, and he's married to her. And he's just like, I don't know if I can do that. But the one thing that Deacon Dust said was, hey, man, you got to tell your wife. You can't leave her in the dark after you just beat one of these guys up. So he's like, okay. And so you wind up getting to see that character interaction there, which was actually really good. And you get to see the pain and that anguish with Oliver. And I think that's what Ryan Stegman does on the pages so well, is he portrays that emotion and makes you feel as a reader. And that's what makes this comic so good. And we get to see that he used his magic to try to save this lady that was in the street. What he didn't tell her, though, it was one of Vanish's disciples. And it was a quite interesting story here. Then you get to see all the bad guys talking with each other, and you wind up getting to see the guy that Oliver was battling in the streets in the first issue, and he's basically saying, hey, Oliver's back, and it's going to trigger a war. So again, I thought that this book was really well done. This is definitely a fun read, and by the time you get to the very, very back of this book, if you haven't read Do a Powerbomb yet by Daniel Warren Johnson, there's a preview here. I suggest you guys read that, because this, for me, is probably the book of the year. So check that out also. But again, going back to Vanish issue 2, definitely a strong book. Love the artwork. I recommend this one, guys. So will this book remain number 1? Find out on Sunday when I do my rapid fire review video. And I still have these books left to read. I have Scorched, issue 11. I have Damned Them Hell, issue 1. X-Men Legends, issue 3. We got Venom, issue 12. Thunderbolts, issue 3. Strange, issue 7. Rogues Gallery, issue 4. Iron Cat, issue 5. Firepower, issue 24. Barbaric, Axe to the Grind, issue 3. Batman Gotham Knights Old Gilded City, issue 1. Batman Beyond the Night, issue 6. We have Sergeant Rock versus the Army of the Dead, issue 2. And DC vs. Vampires, issue 10. There's a lot of books that can overtake those top 5. So there you guys have it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you love my content, I'll leave you everything that I picked up on this new comic book day haul. And of course, guys, as always, remember, keep buying, keep collecting, but always read your comics.